President Trump's decision to deploy the National Guard and rid out crime in Washington, D.C. is really ticking off the left. We're going to discuss the legalities surrounding the president's unprecedented leadership and the public response. Plus, former Trump advisors are coming out of the woodwork to warn the president against pardoning Ghislaine Maxwell. But some in the media are now wondering, is the Epstein story already dead? Stay tuned for discussion on the files and the demand for release on both sides of the aisle throughout the show. And later, churches under attack in the USA. A new report confirms why it's more important than ever to protect places of worship. These stories, so much more as the second hour of American Sunrise starts right now.
Good morning, America.
Welcome to American Sunrise.
Whether it's culture,
we have breaking news to share with you.
Politics.
President Trump is joining us live now from Florida.
We've got you covered.
This is what it looks like to be a patriot.
We have to protect the American family.
The American dream is still alive.
I'm David Brody.
I'm Terrence.
And I'm Dr. Gina.
Welcome back, everybody, to the second hour of American Sunrise. I'm David Brody in D.C. Let's bring in Dr. G in West Palm and, of course, T. Bates in Denver. Good morning to both of you. You know, what has happened to the Drudge Report? I'm looking at the lead story, if you will. It says Trump building police state. I mean, these people, not that I want to talk about Drudge. I couldn't give a rip about him. But this idea of Trump building a police state is literally insane because, of course, that story refers to what's happening in Washington, D.C., which he is very much allowed to do under the Home Rule Act passed in 1973. Right. It's within his jurisdiction, T. Bates, and it's just so frustrating to just see this nonsense and these headlines because, it's never about the story, right? It's always about the headlines because the headlines pretty much grab the attention, and many readers and viewers just look at the headline and go, oh, yeah, Trump's a bad guy. And they leave it at that.
Right. And that's where we come in, right, David? That's where we come in to tell the whole story and to offer some perspective. So while I get exactly what you're saying, it also creates a lane for us and it creates opportunity for us to hopefully be able to inform our viewership. But these are really interesting times. And I know we're going to talk a bit more about this. But the D.C. story, it is to some degree unprecedented. Definitely in our lifetime, no president has ever done what's happening and kind of taken control of Washington, D.C., and it's renewing calls there, as you know, for statehood, which probably will never happen. That's been a conversation that's been happening for decades. So it's just interesting times. And hopefully, over the next 30 days, we'll really see a significant change there in Washington, D.C. that can hopefully catapult it back to the city that it once was, Dr. G.
Yeah, but I want to talk for just 1 second, because a lot of people might not even know what the Drudge Report is, because it hasn't been significant for some time, as a news source anyway, because, it's been replaced. And I think that probably he's a person, he's a human being. As I say a lot on this show, people act on their basis instincts. I think that he is angry that he hasn't been maybe included in the ways that he would have liked to have been, isn't as relevant as he used to be. Certainly back when most of us started doing what we do, first thing you did in the morning was you went to the Drudge Report. But that's not the first thing anyone does anymore who's really looking at news. We go to X, we go to news sources that are more input from the real American people, because we don't really need news sources anymore telling us what we think. What we all want to do is discuss ideas, right, and come to the best conclusions as real Americans, speaking with real voices. I'm sounding like a commercial for this network, but really, it really is. Like, wouldn't you rather look on X and see a bunch of real people from the heartland of America discussing the topic issues and telling you what news is significant than one guy telling you Trump's turned everything into a police state?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I mentioned the Drudge Report, but quite frankly, you could just CNN, ABC, NBC. I mean, they're all the same. I mean, they all take their
But at least they never
orders.
claim to be conservative.
True. That's a good point. So, all right. As the
Yeah,
National
Brody,
Guard,
take that.
Yeah, Brody.
Yeah. Oh, we'll come back and have a discussion. No, I agree with you. All right. As the National Guard begins to arrive at their headquarters in D.C., President Trump continuing to double down on his plan to address crime in the nation's capital. Voices on the left, of course, have been critical of the president's efforts to restore order in the city, but his actions are clearly within the scope of the law, as we've been talking about. Let's bring in Rav's chief White House correspondent, Brian Glenn, for a live look on the ground there in D.C. Of course, Brian's at the White House, but this just in, Brian actually living in D.C., so you can kind of give us a sense, Brian, of what you're seeing. I mean, this National Guard presence is going to ramp up. What's the latest? What are you hearing?
It is. Good morning, David. Per my sources at the gym early this morning, they said, hey, they're all over the Navy Yard, even some in the National Mall area as well. So they are definitely on the ground, going through neighborhoods. And if you go through some of the social media videos that are on Instagram or TikTok, you'll see the reaction from people in the streets. A lot of mixed reviews. A lot of people like to see the presence of the military here on the streets. And then some people are very threatened by it. And I said this yesterday. I think the only people that are against enforcing the laws and enforcing the codes here in D.C. are basically the radical left, and some in the media view this as kind of a police state. But if you're a law-abiding citizen and you want to see crime decrease, you want to see the homeless camps removed that are scattered all across the city, this is a good thing. And I think this is definitely going to be something that you're going to see more of in the coming days, sooner than later, because it's definitely getting some results. Carolyn Levitt yesterday during the press briefing said they've already arrested people with handguns and people that had prior convictions. They were out for warrants, so this thing is working.
Hey, Brian, you mentioned the homeless camp, so let's go there. Right across from the White House, there's that park that's right across from the White House, and it's typically inundated with campers and the homeless. Are you already seeing a change in that respect? Are you already seeing some of these homeless camps start to be dissipated? Okay, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say right now, I'm looking at, this isn't necessarily a homeless camp. It's not designated as a homeless camp, but there is an encampment right in front of the White House on the other side of the fence, and it has been there for years. It's in the park property, and it's often got all kinds of homemade signs littered around it. If you've been to the nation's capital, you've seen what I'm talking about. Often flags of every other country but the United States. And I have said every time I've walked by, why is that allowed to stay there? It is the biggest eyesore in front of our nation's capital. Now, someone say, well, Brian, it's their right to freedom of expression, their freedom of speech. They're allowed to that. I say it's an eyesore. It's a piece of trash. It needs to be removed. Why does someone get to just camp out in front of our nation's capital here, in front of the White House, with all these political signs? I don't like it. I want that removed. And I think a lot of people who come to the White House to visit would probably agree with me. But we have seen several tents that normally, kind of self-made tents, if you will, on the sidewalks going to our office. Those are no longer there. I don't know if that was if they moved on their own, or maybe somebody came in there and forced them to move. But this is a good thing. We must clean up our streets. And if you've been around the White House, there is often people just walking around, people sleeping in front of the EOB building. Almost every single day, there's someone on the sidewalk wrapped up in a blanket and a sleeping bag, sleeping on the sidewalk. I don't think that should be allowed. It looks horrible. We feel sorry for these people. We want some help. We want them to go to somewhere where they can actually get help, not on the streets of D.C.
That's right. And they do need help, and we need to look at it like that. I mean, this whole, for kids who are under the age of 20, they probably never seen our streets clean, but this homeless thing was not a thing, right? It didn't happen. When we were growing up, you didn't go to cities and see homeless people. I remember the first time I saw a homeless person, freaks me to my core. We called them bums back then, by the way. Unfortunately, today, a lot of them are our veterans who are drug addicted and suffering with mental illness and things like that. And you're right, Brian. They do deserve compassion. They deserve to be someplace where it doesn't get extremely hot, it doesn't get extremely cold, and they can get off their drugs and get some help, and maybe even have a chance at a good life. But here's what I want to ask you, Brian, because I don't think we ever really delve into this enough. What is it Where's the money for Democrats in propagating homelessness? Because I know there has to be a follow the money answer here, and I don't know what it is. But I know that our mayor in Palm Beach tried to get rid of homelessness and was doing a pretty good job of it, and the Democrats came down on him. He wouldn't even talk about it anymore. He got so afraid, went right back, and now all the homeless are back. So there's got to be a reason why the Democrats want this. You can't just want this, right? It's terrible.
It is terrible, but look at Gavin Newsom. How much money is in the state's budget to address homelessness, yet their homeless rate continues to rise almost in double digits every single year. I don't know where that money goes. I think it's NGOs. I think it's special organizations. It maybe ties back around to a political party. I don't know, Dr. Gina. That's a great question, because anybody in the right mind that has compassion for human beings, which we all do, we want help for these individuals. They don't need to be sleeping on the streets. And it gets cold in here in D.C. And there's one individual that I see every single day, and I try and buy him something to eat every single day when I see him. And I often ask, when it was cold, how did you sleep last night? Is there a shelter somewhere you can go? Because I'm genuinely concerned about this individual. But we need to make sure that our government, we put our resources together. We have the money to do this. We have the money to solve every problem that we have, but raising money and getting a budget doesn't do it. You must have a solidified, something that's got some substance to it. We got to put them somewhere. We got to treat them for that drug addiction. And if they're a criminal, as President Trump says, we got to lock them up.
Yeah, well, it is interesting, and I bet you're onto something. I bet it's the NGOs, and that money is then funneled back around into the Democrat Party, and that's probably exactly why they want to propagate homelessness. But what a sinister motive, Brian Glenn. Wow. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, B.
Thanks, Dr. Gina. Appreciate it.
Thanks,
All right,
Brian.
still ahead on American Sunrise, Republican candidate for New York City Mayor Curtis Lewa does not want President Trump to interfere in the Big Apple's race. Why is that? Well, we're going to explain why he thinks Trump's silence is the best way to beat Mamdani, and that'll be right after the break. And also, stick around, because the left is attacking a group of concerned mothers. You won't believe this one. That story coming up back in a moment.